In the city of Baghdad, around the year 1095, the most powerful scholar in the entire Islamic world made a decision that shocked everyone. He left everything behind: his job, his wealth, his fame, his comfortable life. And he did it because he looked around and realized something terrifying. Money had become a god, and almost nobody was willing to say it out loud. His name was Al-Ghazali, and the story of how he challenged the money obsession of his time is not just a history lesson. It is a warning that still speaks to us today. Let's go back to where it all started. Picture a young boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting in a small room in northeastern Iran. His name is Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, and his father is dying. The boy doesn't know it yet, but his life is about to change forever. His father, a poor wool spinner, was never able to afford a real education. It ate at him his whole life. So on his deathbed, he made his 2 sons a promise. Whatever money he had left, it would go to their schooling. He wanted them to become scholars. He wanted them to understand things he never could. The father died. His money ran out quickly. The boys faced a choice that many poor children still face today: stop studying or find a way to survive while learning. Young Al-Ghazali enrolled at a madrasa, a religious school, mostly because they provided food and lodging to students. He later joked that he became a scholar for the sake of a full belly, but God had other plans. One day, as a young man traveling between schools, bandits attacked his caravan. They robbed him of everything, but Al-Ghazali did something unusual. He ran after the robber chief and argued with him. He demanded his notes back, the writings and knowledge he had collected. The bandit laughed at him. "What kind of knowledge is it?" the thief asked. "That someone can steal from you. You have wasted your life." That moment changed something in Al-Ghazali's thinking. He decided right then he would memorize everything. Knowledge that lived only on paper could be taken away, but knowledge that lived in your mind and heart could never be stolen. This determination would eventually carry him to the top of the academic world. By the year 1091, at just 33 years old, Al-Ghazali became the head professor at the most important school in Baghdad, the Nizamiya College. Imagine this: he taught over 300 students at a time. Princes and nobles came to hear his lectures. Kings and sultans invited him to their courts. He received the title Proof of Islam, one of the highest honors a scholar could get. Overnight, he had wealth, prestige, influence, and respect. He had achieved everything a young man in medieval Baghdad could possibly want. And he was miserable. But to understand why, we need to understand what Baghdad looked like in 1091. It was the economic capital of the world. Silk came from China. Spices came from India. Gold and silver flowed through the city from everywhere. There were new types of banks that let merchants do business across vast distances without carrying heavy gold coins. The economy was incredibly sophisticated. Money was everywhere. But there was a problem underneath all this wealth. The people who controlled the money, the government officials, the tax collectors, the wealthy merchants, and especially the religious leaders like Al-Ghazali himself, were doing something terrible. They were using morality as a mask. They taught people that being good and following God's law was the most important thing. But in private, they were obsessed with accumulating as much wealth as possible. Scholars would tell students to reject worldly desires while quietly accepting huge payments from wealthy donors. Religious leaders would teach about helping the poor while investing in trading deals that harmed common people. Officials would increase taxes to the point where people could barely feed their families. Al-Ghazali saw this clearly because he was part of it. He took the wealth and prestige his position offered. He moved in circles of power, and slowly, something in him started to break. The Ihya, the book Al-Ghazali would later write, contains a devastating list of scholars condemned to the 7 depths of hell. Who were they? Scholars who only spent time with rich and powerful people. Scholars who used their knowledge to gain favor with kings. Scholars who refused to help poor students. In other words, scholars exactly like the person Al-Ghazali had become. By 1095, 4 years into his prestigious position, Al-Ghazali's body literally shut down. He became unable to speak. He could barely eat. Doctors examined him but found nothing physically wrong. What was happening to him was spiritual. His conscience was screaming. For 6 months he sat in agony. Part of him wanted to leave, to walk away from the wealth, the status, the prestige, the power. But another part held him back, whispering that he would lose everything. "You have responsibilities," the voice said. "You have a reputation, you have money. What kind of person walks away from all of that?" Finally, in November of that year, Al-Ghazali made his decision. He announced that he was going on the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. It was a lie. He had no intention of going to Mecca. Instead, he arranged for his brother to replace him as the head professor. He divided his wealth among his family. He gave away his possessions, and then he simply disappeared. When the Islamic world realized what he had done, they were shocked. One historian wrote that it felt like a calamity thrown on Islam by destiny. The most respected scholar in Baghdad had abandoned everything. The man who had everything had decided it was all worthless. For the next 10 years, Al-Ghazali wandered. He traveled to Damascus, to Jerusalem, to Egypt, to Mecca. He lived as a Sufi mystic, a spiritual traveler who owned almost nothing. He spent entire days meditating in mosques. He fasted. He prayed. He studied not with books and scholars, but with his own mind and soul, and he wrote. During these years of wandering poverty, he wrote his masterwork, The Revival of Religious Sciences. It was 40 volumes long. In it, he did something revolutionary. He explained exactly how money worked, how it could be used fairly or unfairly, and why the way his society treated money was spiritually and economically dangerous. Here is what Al-Ghazali taught about money. Money, he said, is like a mirror. A mirror has no color of its own. It doesn't do anything useful by itself, but it reflects every color. Money works the same way. It has no value of its own. Its only purpose is to help people trade things fairly. When someone uses money for anything beyond that, when they hoard it, hide it, or try to multiply it without doing real work, they are using money wrong. They are treating it like a god instead of a tool. He went further. Hoarding wealth, he wrote, is not just selfish. It is a crime against society. Anyone who hoards money, he explained, is like someone who locks up a king and prevents him from helping his people. The money that sits in a wealthy person's storage is starving the economy. It is freezing the bloodstream of society. Think about that. In the year 1100, with almost no modern economics, Al-Ghazali understood something that economists still teach today. When rich people lock away their wealth instead of spending it or investing it, the entire society suffers. Poor people have fewer jobs. Businesses can't grow. The whole system slows down. He also warned about rulers who manipulated currency, who made coins with less gold in them than they claimed. This is theft, he said plainly. It is stealing from everyone who uses the coins. It destroys trust. When people stop trusting the money, the whole economy collapses. He taught that merchants should not create artificial shortages to raise prices, that bankers should not charge interest on loans in ways that trapped poor people, that a craftsman who earned his living honestly through hard work was more honorable than a wealthy person who inherited their money and did no work. His most powerful teaching was this: wealth is like medicine. A small amount can be healthy, but if you take too much, it becomes poison, and most people, he observed, will never be satisfied. If a man has 2 valleys of gold, he wrote, he will want a third. Now here is the stunning part. Most of what Al-Ghazali taught about money and economics was centuries ahead of his time. Modern economists have looked back at his writings and realized he was describing concepts that didn't officially exist until hundreds of years later. He understood the purpose of currency. He understood inflation. He understood that interest rates needed regulation. He understood that trust was essential to any economy. He understood that when the people who make money stop caring about right and wrong, the entire system eventually breaks down. But at the time, this was revolutionary and dangerous. Religious scholars who had accepted money from kings attacked him. Powerful merchants whose practices he criticized worked against him. His book was burned in Spain. Government officials summoned him to justify his teachings. But Al-Ghazali had already learned something that freed him from fear. He had already chosen poverty over wealth. He had already walked away from power. There was nothing left for them to take from him. And slowly, incredibly, his ideas won. Over the next 100 years, his teachings about honest money, fair trade, and the spiritual dangers of greed spread throughout the Islamic world. His concept of the 5 goals of Islamic law, protecting your faith, your life, your mind, your family, and your wealth, became the foundation for all Islamic economics. Even today, Islamic banks around the world use his framework to decide what is ethical and what is not. His influence even spread west to Europe. Scholars in medieval Christian universities read his work. Thomas Aquinas, one of the most important Christian philosophers, read Al-Ghazali's writings. Aquinas wrote almost exactly the same warnings about wealth, greed, and the dangers of treating money as an end in itself rather than a tool. Whether Aquinas learned directly from Al-Ghazali or came to the same conclusions on his own, the result was the same. Al-Ghazali's basic idea, that money must be connected to morality, or both break, became woven into Western thought too. In his later years, Al-Ghazali returned to teaching, though never again at a powerful government school. He taught in simpler places, to poor students, and he lived modestly. He died in 1111, just as Europe was beginning to glimpse the advanced civilization of the Islamic world. Now, 900 years later, his warning is everywhere we look. We live in a world of billionaires and homeless people. We see companies that pollute the environment to make more profit. We watch as financial crises destroy ordinary people's lives because powerful people prioritized money over honesty. We see political leaders who care more about wealth than about justice. Al-Ghazali would look at our world and say, "Here is exactly what I warned about." This is what happens when money becomes disconnected from morality. But here is the hopeful part of his story. One man who walked away from everything showed that it was possible to challenge the system. One scholar who chose truth over comfort proved that some things matter more than wealth, and his ideas, born in poverty and wandering, outlasted empires. They shaped how billions of people think about money, ethics, and what a society should value. Al-Ghazali teaches us that money is not evil, but money without morality is a weapon, and a society where money matters more than truth, more than justice, more than kindness, that society is building its own destruction. His life asks us a question that still has no easy answer. What are you willing to walk away from for the sake of what is right?